Hello everyone, a very warm welcome to this week's episode of the Sky Sports F1 podcast. Now I'm joined this week by someone who knows exactly what it takes to perform at the very highest level of Formula One. He was Max Verstappen's performance coach and also physio from 2020 all the way through to last year. Please welcome Brad Scanes. Brad, hello, how are you?
Hi Matt, thank you very much for having me on.
Yeah, very good to have you. Look, I alluded to it there. You've obviously just left Formula One. So tell me, how is life post Formula One, not going to 23, 24 races per year?
Yeah, it's a little weird, I gotta be honest. I actually, or in all honesty, really struggled with it at the very, very start. Not even before the season began, just kind of leaving, having, thousands of messages from people, all good messages and very welcome, but very overwhelming at the same time. And knowing that I wasn't going back to the kind of day to day of, the highest level that you can get, was pretty tough. But then, managed to settle into kind of a normal life, new life. And yeah, feel good. It's actually really nice watching from afar and, seeing everyone travel out to Japan already and, not having to do that is good for me right now. So yeah, no, very happy.
Yeah, I guess it is a bit of a, from going on private jets all the time and from that sort of life that you lead when you work so closely with a Formula One driver to kind of not doing that is a bit of a change, isn't it? But I guess, yeah, more time with the family and all the benefits that come with that. So just maybe before we go any further, just give us a little outline of what you did with Max and your sort of career to date with Red Bull.
Yeah, sure. So I think the best way I describe what I used to do with Max is everything so that he just had to think about driving. So, when people ask me, what do you actually do? I was creating the optimal environment for him to go and be him. And, he's the star, he's the driver, he's got what it takes. And it's about kind of just creating that space for that to thrive. So that was everything from running his training programs to looking after him from a pain and injury perspective, from a medical perspective, looking after his nutrition, his hydration, carrying his kit, doing his washing on a race weekend, the stuff that might not seem as glamorous and as fancy, but for an individual who's going for a world championship and needs clarity of mind to, drive at the speeds that he does around the track, little tasks like that can make a huge difference. So yeah, everything from a physical, mental, performance standpoint came under my wing.
I want to get onto that, but I have to ask you about the laundry. What kind of is that a case of washing race suits or washing stuff? How does that work? I guess that's something we see drivers come in these pristine race suits, but yeah, how do they physically get them?
Yeah. I wasn't just taking his underwear every night. It was so depending on kind of what team. So we would normally run with like 6 sets of everything over a race weekend. So technically it was enough to see you for a race weekend, but that might not leave you with like a spare, say on race day. So everything that he would wear on a Friday, I'd then launder Friday night. So I had it back for Sunday. So that I had spares of everything. So, if there's a red flag, it's chucking it down with rain or it absolutely sweating, we can change everything at any point. So yeah, you'd only really kind of wear an undertop and a suit once because a lot of the time we're racing in hot countries and these guys sweat out a lot.
Yeah, that is all the stuff you don't think about, blimey. So look, I want to get your thoughts on what Max is doing right now in the sport, because obviously you've been so close to him for the years of obviously from 21 with that really close title fight with Lewis Hamilton to what can only really be described now as just complete domination of the sport. So when we look at the stats and, he won, for example, last year, won 19 of those races in 2023. From your perspective, how was he able to dominate? How was he able to perform at such a high level and continue to do so this season and maybe for seasons to come?
I think, firstly, he's a champion and winning is just ingrained into his makeup. And that kind of relentlessness to not even think about records, but just want to win, is a real kind of testament to him, real credit to him, but also to, the way that him and his dad, built up through the years, and the way they kind of saw the sport and sport in general. It's, yes, he wants to win F1 races, but he also wants to smash me at FIFA and smash me at table football as well. I don't think I ever beat him at darts or anything. It was, he wants to win. And for me, I had a very, very similar mentality in everything that I did, not as an elite sportsman, but within my own field, always wanted to be the best, always wanted to, push the limits. And I think that's, why we got on so well. And then secondly, a very good ability that we had is to just build around each race weekend as it comes and see each one as, a final that we went out to win. And he always had that in him. And actually 2021 was a shift that we had to make in terms of it was okay to come second and score points because we needed the points. But, take last year, for example, we took every race weekend as it came. We worked through the race weekend individually, work through the same habits and routines and set our sights on just winning this race. And then we move on to the next one and we win that race and we move on to the next one. So yeah, firstly, just a mentality that's been built over 23 years of doing the sport with him and his dad and being around this sort of level. And then secondly, taking each one as it comes, setting the expectations kind of short term to achieve that long-term goal. So, and he'll keep on doing that and keep on winning, I hope.
How did it feel to come into that setup? You mentioned there obviously the strength of that relationship with his dad and with Helmut Marko, and that there seems quite a sort of small inner circle around Max that is a very strong unit. How did it feel to come into that unit? How easy did you find that? And how did people react to kind of a new person coming in?
Yeah, I mean, it was lovely, really. The team, the close team around Max, his dad, his manager Raymond, family, girlfriend, friends, is phenomenal. It's, very close knit, very trusting of one another. And I felt that from the very start when I first went and met him in Barcelona in 2019. I was lucky enough to spend half a day with him, but also his family. So I was chatting to his dad and his girlfriend at the time, and a sister and her other half. And, I always say it's probably part of the reason why I got the job, because I got on so well with them as well. But I think just clarity of vision. We're all there to achieve the same thing. We're all there to win a world championship and guide through that, but also have a good time doing it as well. So I think everyone being on the same page. They're a very open and honest group as well, and that suited the way that I like to work as well. So if someone's not happy about something, nothing ever goes unsaid. You sort it out there and then. If you make a mistake, you come in and say, look, sorry mate, I made a mistake, and we chat it out if it needs to be chatted out, or we just say, yeah, that's fine, and move on from there. So clarity of vision, communication, and open and honesty. And for me, it was beautiful because I really was part of the family. They would invite me to kind of birthdays and stuff while I was in Monaco. I'd be around his, and or I'd go out for dinner with his manager or a beer with his dad. Without him as well. And so yeah, it was. I think for me, it was probably the hardest thing about leaving. Having the initial conversation with them, it was like a breakup. It really was. The nerves and the hesitancy even before that conversation, and it was hard. But yeah, and it doesn't go unnoticed that that's a huge part of his success as well. And you extend that group as well because you've got a very close-knit team of engineers around him as well. So his race engineer, his performance engineer, and they fit in the same way. On a race weekend, it would be, Max, his dad, his manager, me, race engineer, performance engineer. We'd go out for dinner, and it would be that sort of close-knit group. So, it really works, and I think it's been a big part of the success that we've had, and he'll continue to have.
When you went to meet him in Barcelona, 4 years ago. Did you ever expect the job would entail what you've just outlined? Did you think you would essentially end up making what sounds like friends for life, become part of your extended family? There's very few jobs in sport maybe that have that closeness, that relationship with. I don't know if you agree.
Yeah, it's sport can always be an interesting game. Sometimes you do get that, sometimes you don't. I had never worked with an individual up until that point. I'd always been part of a team. So I guess the closest I came was in gymnastics, working with individual gymnasts, but they were still part of Team GB. So you're still working with 4 or 5 at a time. And then to kind of purely focus on one person. And you very quickly realize that if the relationship isn't going to work, the job isn't going to work. You're not going to be able to push the needle and be successful. You have to be able to get on. You have to have the same interests and common goals, because you do spend that much time with each other. And when it works, it works phenomenally well. How did
you find then fitting into the culture of Red Bull? Because from the outside, it does seem like this incredible team of sort of work hard, play hard. It's always playing the loudest music in the pit lane. It's always, Monaco, the energy station. It seems to have a real buzz and energy about the team. Did you enjoy fitting into that team? And I guess as well, you're there partly as this confidant and friend, but you're there ultimately to be bad cop in a sense, right? To train Max, to make sure he's hitting those targets and in the best physical shape he could be. So were there ever any tensions between wanting to go out, wanting to party, and then not being able to, and you sort of having to pull the brakes on it and just kind of go, actually, no, this is why we're here?
Yeah, for sure. Fitting into the team was relatively easy. I've always carried a similar sort of mindset throughout my career as well. It's always, you get done what you need to get done in the time that needs to get done. And then, outside of that, you should be able to enjoy yourself, because if you can't, then the rest of it, what's the point? What are we doing it for? So as long as you hit your targets, you achieve what you need to achieve, and we leave nothing on the table, then, there's some scope for, enjoying some time as well. I think, Red Bull's all about high performance at the end of the day. So yes, they do, they do enjoy themselves, but it's on the backdrop of high performance and achieving. And the team that we've had over the last 4 or 5 years, it didn't change too much. And again, I come back to that kind of common goal. Everyone had that common goal of, we want to win, and we want to, become potentially the greatest team ever, dynasty type conversations. And you should have seen, everyone after Singapore last year, devastated that we weren't going to go and win every single race. And prior to that, the mechanics in the garage, everyone as part of the team, you could see it in them. They were on such a level of performance that they weren't going to put a step wrong, and they didn't want to be the person to put a step wrong, because we were going to try and win every race. So fitting in was fine, because everyone's in that kind of common goal. I think as you rightly said there, as a performance coach within Formula One, where you're often in the grey area of where loyalties lie, and not loyalties as such, but where you need to kind of work within everyone, because you become the kind of link between the driver and everybody else in the team. You have to look after the driver. You have to get him performing at the highest level, but you need to be, in best friends with the engineers. You need to be in with the management. You need to be in with catering. You need to be in with media and marketing, because at some point you're going to have to communicate with all of these people around Max's schedule or Max's food or his performance indicators to management, and where that sits. And sometimes it depends who's paying you as well as to who you need to report to and stuff there too. So it can be a bit of a grey area. But I always say, as long as you're achieving what you need to achieve and you're doing that in the right way, everyone's going to be happy. So
you mentioned Singapore there, and as well as Singapore, there's been some amazing moments for Max, of course, over the past 4 years that you worked with him, but also some tougher moments as well. And I wonder if we could go back to 2021, obviously in the end, victorious. And you said earlier, there were obviously moments where you had to learn to finish second. How does your job change in those moments of increased pressure. I think back to 21. It's almost one of those where you do have to just keep reminding yourself of how ridiculous that season was in it going down to the last lap of the last race. The tension built and built and built. How do you keep his mind focused? How do you do your job well in order to help him obviously, end up victorious?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of ways to look at that. If you're doing your job well, you don't need to change because you're doing this week in, week out. And certainly the way that we approached every race is exactly like that. So we approached the races in the same way that year as we did last year. We want to win every race. Yes, we had to obviously look at certain tracks where we were going to struggle and say, our win this week is second place. So you just kind of change the end outcome of the goal there. But yeah, we were very lucky to, as someone in sport, working in sport, I consider myself extremely lucky to be a part of that season. We just witnessed two of the best go at it, head and head, neck and neck. And you don't often get that opportunity. And it's the little things like, little things they'll try and do to get one over each other, in the cool down room after a race, who could be the longest to get ready and take the most time. And it's those little mind games that those two were playing with each other.
Did you discuss that? Was that strategy?
Not really. No, I think, it happens, doesn't it? I think back to when I used to play football, and if you had I used to play central defence. If you had a really good striker, you'd give him a little elbow, you'd pull his shirt a little bit, you'd tread on his toe a little bit. It's the little things like that which kind of crop up and stuff. So yeah, there were often a few conversations on race strategy and that sort of thing, but no, little things like that kind of just seem to come. And you see it in the very best when you're in a title fight. Those little things they do come. You think back to, again, football analogies because I'm a football fan, but think of the big years when Man United and Arsenal were going at it, or Mourinho in Real Madrid and Barcelona, and the comments in the media and the mind games and the touchline sort of stuff. So similar bits to that. So yeah, we still approached every race in the same way. We kept our habits, kept our routine. I think that's so important because as soon as you start changing things, you start to change the dynamic of the thought processes and the kind of performance KPIs. I think the only thing we changed towards the end was we changed kind of the travel and logistics a little bit. So rather than heading home and changing time zones and having multiple flights, we ended up staying out and, taking some days off to completely remove ourselves from what F1 was, what travel was, just to rest. And because it was tense, it was super, super tense. You could feel it in the paddock. You could feel it everywhere. And it was almost like a hatred just building between Red Bull and Mercedes. You'd walk past them in the paddock and it was like,
yeah.
But amazing for sport.
Yeah, incredible to be a part of that. Did Max change at all during that process? When you look at him now and obviously having this domination, that did you almost feel like 21 was the making of him, like being able to go neck and neck with Lewis Hamilton, 7-time world champion? It just, there was never any doubt that he had the talent, but being able to do that and obviously come out the other side, was there any change in the way he did things, or any little stories that you've got about that?
I think for me, you saw it a lot in 2020. So in terms of Max as a driver, we had a quite considerable deficit in car. That Mercedes in 2020 was far superior to our Red Bull, and Max would often split the two Mercedes drivers in a less than good car. I think what 2021 brought was a maturity to win championships, a recognition that second place was okay, even to the point where in Budapest, driving with half a floor, seventh. Actually, I think we came ninth in the end. So that ninth place was fine because that was 1 point. And you look at how we went into Abu Dhabi, neck and neck. Yeah. All these points mattered. So whereas that might have been, a DNF in the past, or, something else happened during a race. It was the ability to see the bigger picture and to go from someone that can win races to someone that can win championships. And you see that even more now. He's grown even more in terms of the ability to work through a race weekend and work through a race season is phenomenal now.
Yeah, 24 races this year, so he's going to get good practice at doing that. A lot of rumours at the moment around Formula One and in relation to Max and his future. And he's obviously gone on record in the past and said he's not going to be someone who's going to be racing into his 40s in Formula One. He feels like it's a more of a kind of, I want to dominate, I want to do short-term thing, and then want to go race other categories, maybe race with his dad. There's all sorts of things open to him. I know you don't have a crystal ball, so you're not going to be able to say he's going to go to Mercedes, he's going to go to another team. But can you see him ever leaving Red Bull? And what do you think his future looks like within the sport?
Max not in a Red Bull suit would be very weird. He's grown up in that team. He loves the team. He loves the mentality of the team. But you can also never say never. I think as long as they're competitive, he'll still be there. That might change because he always wants to win. And if he doesn't see a future of winning, then that might be when things change. In terms of longevity in the sport, I think you're absolutely right. He probably isn't someone that's going to stick around for, Alonso or Hamilton sort of time. He'll get done what he wants to get done. And when he feels happy that he's achieved everything he wants to achieve, whether that's when he's 29, when he's 30, or when he's 34, that'll be kind of up to him. But for sure, he has so much other stuff going on now, so much other stuff that he enjoys as well with his team Redline, with his his virtual racing, other series that he wants to do with his dad and other races as well. So he's a guy that likes to be home, likes to be with his friends, likes to be with his family. Doesn't always enjoy the other stuff that comes with F1. The media side of things, the marketing side of things, the other commitments that he's always having to do. And it'll be those sort of things that drive an exceptional talent out of F1, and he won't be the first for that as well. The pressures on the drivers to do these sort of events and these meet and greets and this filming stuff is getting more and more and more. Add in the amount of races that we're doing, we will start to see sort of burnout and things like that. It's a lot of time commitments and a lot of effort to do those things.
There's actually not that many people in Formula One that do go to every race. Even amongst mechanics and engineers now, there is a bit of a rotation. Even the likes of Toto Wolff aren't going to every race now. So it really is just the drivers, people like yourself, the performance coaches and physios, the inner circle of those drivers who are going to every single race. Do you think it's being spoken about enough in the sport? Obviously, you've had a bit of a removal now. You haven't been in the sport for a while. Do you think the sport is taking seriously the burnout? It's not like get the tiny violin out for Max Verstappen, who's on a crazy £1 million contract. But there is a point, isn't there, where we are going to start driving away people who are going to find other racing series way more exciting or appealing, at least, if they're shorter, less commitment, less weekends. We're sort of seeing it in golf at the moment with Liv. Obviously, the money goes with it, but a lot of those players are citing the reasons they want to leave is because they don't want to be away for 24 weeks of the year. They want to be 16 weeks of the year. So, yeah, what do you make of what the sport is doing to combat that?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, you're going to end up driving down quality because you're not going to have your best guys at every race. Yes, the driver will fly in and fly out, but you're going to have your best engineers at every race. If you're really pushing the limit of more races, you're going to have your best mechanics at the race, or if you're rotating through pit stop teams, it might be nice to see a 10-second pit stop every now and again, but it's not going to keep the kind of quality there. And yeah, having an oversight now, I mean, it was a big thing as to why, I needed to step away. I would have, loved to stay in the sport, but for me, it wasn't sustainable with, young family and a few other projects that I've got on. But I did the most travel in the team. So because me and Max didn't live in the same location because I'm UK based. So I would fly to the races. I'd fly home Sunday night. I'd have Monday at home. I'd be back to Monaco on Tuesday to do it all again. So I was only getting one day a week. And, engineers, so race engineer, performance engineer, they do every race, but then they're back at the factory, back at home with their families and stuff there. So it's definitely a toll on certainly the people that do my role. But it is on everyone as well. If you're a mechanic and, you got Bahrain test, Bahrain race, Saudi race, you're away for 3.5, 4 weeks straight away. And I know F1 are trying to block things together in terms of bringing down, carbon emissions, toll on the world and stuff. But boxing these continents together means staff are away for longer periods of time and have less ability to pop back home and stuff as well. So that'll take its toll also. I think you have a really nice, if you kind of look at like 20 races a year, that'd be super manageable for everyone. That'd create an amazing championship. Also jeopardy as well, because you haven't got as many races to score as many points. You could get all the staff to, each race that we wouldn't be talking about potential burnout. You could bring races in and out potentially, to create different seasons each year. I think, you are going to look at burnout. You're definitely going to look at reducing the quality of what we see. I think it does need to be looked at for sure.
Do you miss it? You said at the beginning that you found it a little bit hard to adjust to life without Formula One, and just tell me what your life looks like now. What are you up to?
Yeah, so to answer the first question, I miss certain things about it, but actually I'm not missing it per se. I'm not missing the travel. I'm not missing being at track. I'm not missing doing the day-to-day bits of it. I definitely miss the people I worked with, working with Max, working with the team around him for sure. And I miss rolling out on a Saturday evening and a Sunday morning, having that changing room feel with the boys in the garage, getting ready to go racing, that competitive side of things that I always miss because that's me. I've settled nicely into a nice routine now. I've got a good mix of stuff. I run an online app for physio and for fitness training for general populations. That could be anyone, wanting to lose weight or get fit or run a marathon. I've still got my hand in motorsports. So I'm working with 4 or 5 drivers with a colleague of mine. So we're providing race support and then remote training and physio from that side. So I will be at some races this year, World Endurance Championships and some lower series, F3 and F4. So that's exciting. I'm looking forward to that. That's kind of where I am now. And then I still look after some Red Bull athletes, so UK-based Red Bull athletes from clinic in London, just from a physio point of view, and making sure they're fit to go and win world championships as well. Managed to pick up a triathlon one in the interim, so still winning, still competing.
Yeah, I get that impression. Yeah, that's what you love, isn't it? Being part of a team to be competitive and that winning feeling, which is kind of unmatched, isn't it? Really, I certainly have only had it at Sunday League level, so I can only imagine what it's like to win with a team like Red Bull. And I want to get through some questions because we've got quite a few that we put up a post on Instagram and Twitter yesterday. So a few people have come in with some questions. These are going to be a bit sort of around the houses, but I think there'll be some interesting answers off the back of them. So look, first question: how many times a week and how long does an F1 driver spend in the gym? I guess I could ask you 2 questions on that. How long did Max spend in the gym, and how long would other drivers spend in the gym, or is it kind of a one size fits all?
Yeah, no, it completely varies, and it also varies on the time of year that we're in, whether we're in season, whether we're in pre-season. So F1's, it's quite unique in that you have to train every part of the body. So you have to have strength in the neck, the upper body, the core, the lower body, and then you have to be cardiovascularly endurance fit as well. So pre-season, we would train 6 to 8 times a week, 4 double day sessions and then 1 single with a couple of rest days. And there would be probably around 90 minutes to 2 hours each time. So you're looking kind of 4 hours of training a day during pre-season. And then In season, it's a lot less. You're grabbing time when you can, maximizing recovery. There'll be shorter sessions, try and keep the intensity there. With F1, or with motorsports in general, you can be super, super fit, but not gain more lap time from that. But there's like a limit. So if you don't reach the limit of what you need to be to drive an F1 car, you can lose lap time. So as soon as you kind of hit that limit, you don't have to be super, super fit afterwards. So then it comes down to, do you enjoy training? So Max never did. So we made sure that we kind of minimally dosed, so minimal effective dosage, to make sure that we were fit enough to drive an F1 car and have no drop off in cognitive capacity, physical capacity. Did we then need to add more on top of that? No, because he's not going to enjoy that, and that's going to disrupt his lifestyle. Someone like Carlos or Pierre, they enjoy training. So part of their mental decompression from a race weekend might be to go into the gym, spend 2 hours lifting weights and so on and so forth. So that's very much a variable level. So you just have to do enough to kind of reach your KPIs for what it is to be a Formula One driver.
Who was the fittest Formula One driver on the grid, in your view? I suppose you don't have the data on each driver.
Yeah, no, I can only go by what I see on Instagram.
Yeah. Well, but someone like Valtteri Bottas, for example,
he's cycling,
as an example, because he's cycling and he seems to be competing at a sort of amateur, mid amateur level.
Yeah,
and racing against other people. I mean, you've got to be pretty fit to be doing that, as well as also driving a Formula One car.
He did a big race last summer actually, and came like 6th or 7th or something like that. So
incredible.
he's pretty fit. Yeah, I know. Pierre can set a pretty quick 5K time. Carlos is pretty fit as well. So yeah, I wouldn't like to say. I guess look at Qatar last year. You'll see who's fit and who's not fit.
50-degree heat will do that too.
Yeah, exactly.
That's fair enough.
Who walked away and who was laying on the floor.
Yeah, go back to Parc Fermé and have a look.
Yeah.
Right. Do drivers have to follow specific dieting during the off season, or is it more laid back? And what kind of, on that, what sort of foods are you recommending a driver eats during a race weekend? Yeah.
So in the off season, I kind of let it be. It's important that these guys, we go for 9-10 months of the year. Actually, the drivers, because we start first, second week in January, they're only getting 4 or 5 weeks off really a year, because summer break, you have to be careful because there's only, 10 days really that you can go away for. So they're only getting 4 to 6 weeks at Christmas to kind of enjoy themselves. So I let it be with the view that how hard it's going to be when you get back. Depending on what you do. So you either enjoy yourself a bit and be good and then make it easier for when you come back, or you're going to have to work really bloody hard when you get back. And then during a race weekend, it depends on your driver, because you have a certain weight limit in the car also, and some drivers will be on the limit of that weight and some will be like way outside of that. So fueling will be very different for that, but you need to provide enough fuel and energy for a driver to work their way through a race weekend, but not tip the scales for the engineers setting up the car. So during a race weekend, you're focusing on high protein for recovery. You also need high carbs because they're burning through a lot of energy. That's kind of where it'll be. So it's quite simple, simple kind of fueling strategies. It's nowhere near like competing for a marathon or anything like that, where you're really having to think about things. You might utilize kind of shakes in between sessions, high protein, high carbs for recovery. And there'll be all drivers have a drink in the car for race day. And that'll be a mixture of like electrolytes and a high carb mix, again, to sustain a bit of energy and also replenish kind of fluids lost.
How much, I've always wondered, how much water is actually in that pack in the car?
Again, it actually depends on the setup of the car and the setup of the track.
Right, yeah.
So sometimes the engineers will come to me and say, bro, can we just get like half a litre in there? That would depend on kind of what the conditions are going to be. Other times it can be like 1.6, 1.8 litres, varied. So it's a really hard offset because you're balancing what Max would need, what the engineers would need, and what the conditions kind of give to you. So take Miami, for example, where we've got 30-degree heat, 70% humidity. You need the maximum amount of drink you can get in the car, because Max is probably going to lose about 3.5 liters of sweat. Now, we can't get more than, say, 1.8 liters in the car, so you're only replenishing half anyway. But we need to put as much in there as we can. Whereas if you're racing in Spa in the rain, you're probably not going to need as much. You might be able to allow the engineers to just have a half a litre or a litre in there. So it becomes a bit of a communication, bit of a back and forth. But, when it's safety of a driver, they're good as gold. So.
Yeah, I imagine in Qatar you're just putting litres of water.
Yeah,
10 litres. Yeah.
You think if they're going to burn through probably like 3.5 to 4, maybe 4.5 litres of sweat fluid lost in Qatar, and you can only go up to 1.5 to 1.8 litres in the car, you're not even getting half of what they're losing. So you can understand why some drivers are getting out of that car and exhausted, dizzy, the whole lot of it. So we lost in Miami the first year, because Miami caught us by surprise that first year in 22. We didn't expect the humidity that we had. And we lost over 5% of body mass during that Grand Prix. Which, when you start losing over 5% of body mass, your cognitive function can be impacted by up to 30%. So you imagine, decision making under pressure, overtakes, that can be really, really effective. We actually had a very lazy crash in the which brought out the safety car in 22. If you watch that back, I think it was Pierre and Lando.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I guess, from when you're having those conversations about water and with the engineers, you go, well, you could be the fastest car on the grid, but if the driver isn't at their peak performance to operate the car to its maximum, then what's the point? You're shooting yourself in the foot. Very, very interesting. Chris wants to know, how did you go? And this is going to be a very long question, long answer probably. But how did you go from being a physio to working with a driver in Formula One? What was sort of your path to get to this point?
Yeah, it's often one that hasn't been like a lot traveled in the past, but it's becoming a lot more prevalent now. So I've been a physiotherapist for 13 years now, working in elite sport just as a physiotherapist. And from NHS clinics to private practice to performance centres in London, professional football, Team GB basketball, Team GB gymnastics. So I was kind of in the kind of professional sports circle. The key for making the transition from physio to performance coach is actually becoming dual qualified. So I'm also a qualified strength and conditioning coach. I've got a sports science degree as well. So it's having those options of being able to train an individual, but also look after the health and well-being of that individual. Or, someone might be a strength and conditioning coach and a nutritionist, or, but it often, because you're kind of that one-man band, you're traveling around with them, you're their go-to for everything. You often need to be dual qualified within something. And then, I actually met someone who was doing a similar role in the NBA for Luol Deng, who was playing basketball for Team GB at the time, who I did a bit of work with. And I kind of looked at that and thought, you know what, I'd love to just work with one athlete and kind of see what that was all about. And then started investigating a little bit more, and motorsports was an area kind of where that is a requirement. Tennis would be another one where, an individual performance coach traveling with one player, because they do so many days on the road, you need someone to come in and be able to train you, but then also look after you from an injury and pain and ache perspective as well. So that's the kind of build out of that.
Fascinating. It's such an interesting job. Final question. How often did Max play FIFA before sessions? And I mean, just this seems to be his way of switching off, right? Playing FIFA. That seemed to be it. So did you used to play with him? Did you over a race weekend or in your downtime?
Yeah. So I think it's a bit of a myth that it was kind of before or in between sessions. We never had the PlayStation at track or anything like that. So it was only like going back of an evening and it play in the evening, and it could be FIFA, it could be Call of Duty, it could be some virtual racing. It's it's exactly that. It was his way to switch off, get downtime, and spend some time with his friends, because they're all on there as well. And, it can't go unnoticed because we're away. we're in a hotel room, and in the last 2 years, Max hasn't really been able to go out, even go out for dinner and stuff, because it's impossible with, the fans and the kind of the hype around it, super, super difficult. So having that ability to be able to communicate with your friends and have that downtime and think about something else, again, probably can't go unnoticed in terms of how successful he's been switching off and then being able to shift back into, okay, we're back to kind of F1. I think that's super, super important. But yeah, I played a few times, got beat a few times. It took me 3 years to beat him. But I finally did. Yeah, it was on a plane journey, actually. I finally got one over. I definitely celebrated.
Yeah. Did a victory dance around the plane.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing he's not good at, is there? He's one of those annoying people. He's just good at everything he turns his hand to.
Winning mentality.
That way.
It's you find a way, and then on the flip side, if you know you're not good at it, you're not going to play it because you can't win. So you avoid it.
Oh, that's very good. Brad, incredible insight. Thank you so much. Just time to tell listeners and viewers at home about the timings for this week. So it's Japanese Grand Prix this week, which, as you said earlier, Brad, I bet you're pleased. You're maybe missing with the jet lag that would come with that sort of travel. But we're going to be on air from 3 a.m. For FP1 on Friday, 6:45 a.m. for FP2. And then you can enjoy the F1 show over breakfast at 8:15. Saturday, FP3 kicks off at 3:15 a.m. for we'll build up to qualifying at 6 a.m. Then Sunday, we're on air at 5 for a race start of 6. Definitely don't miss those, do you, Brad?
Absolutely not. And Japan's been very kind to us over the years. We won our second World Championship there. I have very, very fond memories. So I'll be looking forward to watching it this weekend.
Nice one, Brad. Thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate it. Amazing insight into what it's like to work with Max. And sounds like you're doing great things as well, even after F1, which is brilliant to hear. So we'll be back next Tuesday after the Japanese Grand Prix. Hope you can join us then. Bye for now.